Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. Now, we've all heard the saying that politics is a dirty business. You know how they throw dirt at each other and they'll do anything to get into power. Well, we also know that the media is disgraceful. Fake news. And Australia is no exception, unfortunately. We have so much fake news here in this country. If it doesn't fit the lefty narrative, it doesn't see the light of day. And here's a shout out to Darby, who brought this video to my attention, which is attached to this intro. And it involves one Fraser Anning. Yes, Senator Fraser Anning, the Australian senator who is a champion for helping South African whites get into Australia. And we're hoping that when we have our elections, that Fraser and his team are going to get enough seats in the Senate to actually be able to hold the balance of power and force the Australian government to have special visas aimed at helping whites who are facing a genocide. Anyway, time will tell what happens, but the extraordinary thing about this video is that number 2 on his Senate list in Queensland is a person of colour. Now, let's remember the media are painting Fraser Anning as an extreme right-winger, a racist, and all these other terms. Now, in this video, you'll see his number 2, the man of colour, being interviewed by someone. And in the interview, you'll hear him saying that he thinks Fraser Anning's a lovely guy, and he is a lovely guy. I know Fraser well. I've known him for over 20 years. He's not a racist. He's a pragmatist, he's a realist, and he is a very decent fellow. But of course, not when it comes to the media. Full of, you know what, fake news. All right, guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Here comes the video with the interview. And when you're subscribing, remember to ring the bell so you be kept informed with the updates. Have a great day.
Mr. Paul Taylor, congratulations on being nominated as the number 2 on the Fraser Anning Senate ticket. I must say a lot of people here are shocked to see a brown-skinned man running number 2 for Fraser Anning, who, as we have heard on the media, has apparently been linked with white supremacism. So you're the man. Tell me, how do you respond to that those comments?
Thank you, Jim, and I'm indeed very honoured to be his running mate. And with respect to how the media report Fraser, it is, as we know, the media are not the enemy of the people, they're the enemy of the truth. And when I've spoken with them, and I stand beside him, I introduce Fraser as my white supremacist mate. And they really are confounded by it, because they say, hang on, what's going on here? Because I'm just exposing him in another way, because he's not a white supremacist. They use that because they can't argue with him and they can't win the argument. So the only thing they can resort to, as the left wing always do, is name-calling.
So you don't believe that Fraser Anning is a white supremacist in any way, shape or form?
Definitely not. If he was, I would have seen through him by now.
Now, Paul Taylor, you are running on the Fraser Anning Senate ticket. Are you a white supremacist yourself?
Well, I really don't. How could I be a white supremacist? Well, I married a white woman. Now, people have called me a racist, but then I've introduced them to my wife, and they're confounded by that. So I don't actually get the term white supremacist. I'm not colorblind, actually. I just see people for who they are. So how could I be a white supremacist? What I can't understand is, why do white people hate white people? I just can't understand that.
What do you mean, why do white people hate white people?
White people today are so many of them in leadership are actually ashamed to be white. I don't know why, and I can't get my head around that. I mean, people come into this country and they want to be seen as to be being brown because they think because they're white, they've inherited something which was not right, of some genocide that took place decades or centuries ago, and they are feeling guilty for it. And because of that, they've been hoodwinked and deceived to be guilty of what happened generations ago. You can't hold me to account for what my generations ahead of me did years and years ago.
Good point. Now, Paul, you are running for the Fraser Anning party. Fraser Anning has been in the media a lot lately with his comments regarding Islamic immigration. Now, he obviously wishes to open the debate with the Australian people involved as to how we manage our immigration, and specifically how we manage our Islamic immigration. What are your thoughts on this subject?
I say this not to be disrespectful to Fraser, but shall I say on the political scene, maybe he's only come on the scene recently with it. I've held this view for decades. For decades I've held the view that we need to pull the shutters down on Muslim immigration in this country for the simple reason Islam is totally incompatible with our Judean-Christian laws, our values and our lifestyle. It's totally incompatible, so I can't understand why these people would come here. Now, not all Muslims are terrorists, sure, but Muhammad was. And he is the epitome of what every Muslim ought to be and become. So basically, these people who come in here are striving and working towards becoming a terrorist and to kill us because that's what the Quran authorizes them to do. And it's the authority for all the evil that they perpetrate. So to want to protect our own culture, our own heritage and our own future is not racist, it's a patriot. It's the patriot thing to do, it's the right thing to do. It's only a coward who wouldn't stand up and want to protect their children, want to protect their heritage and want to protect their culture.
So the Muslims say that the Quran is no different than our Bible. It's just a holy book that preaches peace and understanding, as does Jesus Christ. As a Christian, what are your thoughts on the Quran?
Well, the Muslims have a very fundamental doctrine called taqiyya. And that is, you advocate that while you're in the minority and only to advance that cause. Taqiyya means you can lie to a non-believer, meaning you can lie to a non-Muslim. Mind you, they do lie to Muslims as well, but to a non-Muslim in particular, when they're talking to you, they basically view you as a dog, it's okay to lie to a dog, of course. So for them to lie to you is nothing. And the Quran is not the same as the Bible, because the Quran is the only book that advocates killing people of a different faith, and it's the only book that also rewards, in their mind, rewards people for killing people of a different faith, whereas the Bible does not. The Lord Jesus Christ himself said, if you go and talk to someone about the gospel, and if they do not receive you, you shake the dust off the soles of your feet and you walk away. But the Quran says, if he does not believe when you go and talk to him about Allah, then you are to kill him. They're not the same books. One's a book of hate, the other's a book of love.
So you would advocate a serious look at our Islamic intake into this country?
Absolutely. And I really think the best way to restrict Muslim immigration to this country is it's very simple. Let me give you an analogy here. If you're blind in one eye and the other eye has very weak vision, and you've been driving for many years and your vision in the one eye is weakening, you need to have a new license to see whether you are fit to continue to drive on the roads. And if you don't pass that test, you don't get a license. So I would actually advocate on our immigration form, when people are wanting to come to this country, that on the form, right at the top of the form, we have something like this. Do you have an issue with the Australian anthem? Do you have an issue with the Australian flag? Do you have an issue with the way our women dress on the beaches? Do you have an issue with pork being sold in our country, with bacon being cooked on a barbecue in an open park? Do you have an issue if your son or daughter converts to a different religion? Do you have an issue if your daughter wants to marry someone of a different faith? And if you've got issues with all of these, then Australia's the wrong country for you. Because in Islam, you are not allowed to convert out of the faith. So at first base, without them even paying for the application form, the moment they look at this form to begin with, they're going to say, well, hang on. There's no point proceeding with this application because we've got to pay a few hundreds of dollars for it. And at very first base, we've got issues with all of these things. My daughter wants to leave the faith. We can't kill her in Australia. We can't do anything. That's a very clinical way for us to screen the people who do not want to integrate and live in this country.
Mr. Paul Taylor, welcome to Gatton. It's great to see you out here in the food bowl of Australia. As you can see behind us, there's a dry lake out there. We're short of water here. Fraser Anning has spoken of major water infrastructure projects. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, in 2004, Malcolm Turnbull entered the federal parliament for the first time. A year later, John Howard appointed him to cabinet, and his first position in cabinet was that as Minister for Environment and Water. At the time, I had just come out of the corporate world myself, and I was very excited when this guy came into parliament, because now we were going to see a former corporate executive actually getting things done. Turnbull came out, went out with a plan, unrolled a plan that cost $60 million to drought-proof the nation. His exact words were, he says, it'll cost us $60 million to drought-proof the nation, to build these dams, hydro energy that can be obtained from these dams. We can pump the water out into the dry areas. We can drought-proof the nation, and we can become the food bowl to Asia.
And what happened to that plan?
They lost the election to Kevin Rudd, as we know what happened there, who opened the floodgates to the refugees. But then when Malcolm Turnbull became Prime Minister, he still did not pick it up and still did nothing with it. And tragically, as a migrant to this country who's very interested in politics, when I look at from 1985, from the time I came to the country to this very date, I can actually only list 3 things of significance, actual significance, that have taken place in the country from various governments, where they've actually made something to actually significantly change this country and take it forward. One was the floating of the Australian dollar by Bob Hawke. 2 was the wages accord. And 3 was the introduction of the GST. Outside of that, there's been nothing of significance that all these Labour and Liberal governments have actually done to benefit and take this country forward.
Paul Tyler, all the best in the election. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.